So what we thought we would start with is we would do a turnback, because after you've done your turnout inspection, you've had your ride, you have to hurry up within 60 to 90 minutes and do this turnback. And first thing first, turnout is different from turnback. Turnback is looking, what have you done to take care of your horse after your ride? So there are 3 pieces that we look for in the turnback inspection. We look at your horse, and I always say first and foremost, that is the most important thing. Yeah. Your horse is your partner. Make sure that your horse is taken care of afterwards. The second piece, we will look at your tack, and then the third piece, we'll look at the rider's boots, because you have a turnback at a multi-day rally. And so we want you to be ready to go the next day. Right. The goal of the turnback is not to be as perfect as you were at turnout, but so that you look presentable the following day. Sure. So I always say the biggest tool you have for turnback checking your horse are your hands. You don't need, you've touched something and it feels sticky. And that's kind of what you're doing with a horse. So I approach the horse, I always start from the head. Common spaces where you'll see issues, and it's usually our younger members possibly can't reach, the forehead, the brow bands. Make sure they've gotten bridle marks away. If it's really hot weather, check behind the ears. A lot of times I find myself providing tips on, my horse doesn't like a sponge at its head, so I'll talk about dampening a towel, and but they can feel it. You can feel dried sweat. You run your hand and all of a sudden your hand stops. The next thing that I do is I just run down. Yes, I know. I run my hands down. Where does a horse sweat? Typically sweats down here, on the chest, around the legs, and it always looks like I'm a crazy horse petter, but it's kind of, that's where the sweat is, right? You want to go into the armpits, where the girth area is. I usually run my hands down. If it's muddy, I'm always, regardless, I'm going to check the belly. Do I feel mud or arena dirt stuck on the belly? Another place that gets forgotten a lot is inside the hind legs and around the hindquarters. I can't tell you how many times I get the dried sweat on the front of the gaskin or in the stifle area, and also on the hindquarters. And then the last thing, and I'll do that on both sides, the last thing I'll check is I'll pick up a hoof and make sure that they've picked out arena dirt from the hooves, because every once in a while they'll be in a hurry. And so I usually, during my briefing, I will remind competitors, you have the same tools I have, and to make sure the last thing you do is pick out the hooves. So those are the major points that we're looking at for the horse. Did they get all the major sweat points off?
Right. Because that's good for the horse's health and comfort.
Yes.
There is a good reason for all of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You don't want to sit around in sweaty clothes, and a horse doesn't have thumbs, so they can't hold a brush. So.
Yet.
Yeah, exactly. They will figure it out.
Excellent. Right, so we're going to also take a look at boots, because they are an important part of the turnback inspection too, and Yvette brought her boots to show us what they should look like.
And this is actually after a horse show. I pulled my boots out of the boot bag. We were talking before we started filming. You can always just, before you put your boots into your boot bag or put them away, you just brush the dirt off the soles. Good way to ruin your boot bag is to put muddy boots right into a cloth or plush lined bag. So we're looking for, did they brush off the soles of the boots? And you'll be convinced that some of these riders didn't even touch the ground by how they've brushed the boots off. Again, we're not looking so much for turnout inspection quality, but we are looking to make sure that they took care of their boots, that they got sweat off from the inside, and that they've wiped them down. And so everyone always asks, why do we spend so much time polishing our boots? I call these my self-cleaning boots, because if they're really well polished, it is so easy to get the sweat off. This should really be like a 5-minute task. Unless you've gone through, like it's cross-country day or it's super muddy in the arena, but really it should just be dusting them down and doing a little shine block on them, and they should be good to go. For the tall boots, I'm going to put one down. For the tall boots, we are looking at the turnback. Your trees should be in them. So, and that includes, and I invested, one of my first investments when I was an adult and was spending my own money, was getting my trees, my wood trees, but also the toe trees. Don't forget about the toe trees in your boots, because your boots should be packaged at the Turnback. They should be packed and ready to go so that you can just pull them on the next day or zip them on the next day. I have both. So. And that's what we're looking for with the rider's boots. A lot of times the younger members might be in their paddock shoes that they're still wearing. They still need to clean them. And I will say that is a big challenge for some of our younger members in their paddock shoes. And I usually encourage them when they're doing their work in the barn to maybe have a pair of rubber boots.
Okay, like these.
Yeah, safe rubber boots like wellies. It saves the wear and tear on their paddock shoes, but they should show an effort, even if that's their only pair of shoes that they have, or appropriate footwear that they have. They should make the effort to clean them. So.
Right. And so you can tell if someone doesn't clean their boots because the parts of the boot that connect with the horses get kind of gross.
Yes,
right?
exactly. You'll see the white sweat.
Yeah,
and it's always enlightening when you can tell somebody hasn't told them what that is. They're like, oh, is that what that is? Or it'll be sweat in the summer or the scurf from the coat in the winter. And they're like, what is that white stuff? And then that becomes a whole other lesson of that stuff that's in the coat that comes out on your boots. So we're just looking to make sure that they are clean and ready to go for the next day.
Yeah, if you're keeping your leg on, your boots are going to get gross.
Exactly.
And that's definitely one of those things where I find it's easier if you stay on top of it.
Yes.
Like if I go even a few days without cleaning my boots, it's like I have to get some elbow grease in there.
Well, certainly even my half chaps. I will admit that I am not always the perfect Pony Club member, and I pay for it when I don't clean my day-to-day boots and my half chaps every day. And I'm always impressed by our Pony Club members who they show up with their half chaps that I know what mine look like. And I'm like, how do you keep them so clean? And they're like, I clean them every day, as you should.
As you should. They last longer too.
Yes.
All right, so the other important piece of the Turnback inspection is the tack, making sure that the tack is all cleaned up and ready to go. So take it away.
All right, so we're looking for a few pieces of equipment. We're looking at the saddle and the bridle, and we also talk about the rider's boots. So normally I'll look at the horse in the horse's stall, or the rider will bring the horse to me, and then we go to the tack room because watching competitors carry pounds and pounds of tack on a hot day is never pleasant, and I actively rally still, and I hate it when I have to take it to one place. So what we're looking for on the tack with the saddle, and I will hand you the Girth chest, on the saddle, again, this isn't your turnout inspection, so we're looking to make sure that you've wiped down everything, that you're ready to go and you're safe, that you've given your tack a once over. I'm guessing that pretty much everyone who's watching this video has looked at their tack before they put it away. Do I need to replace something? The big things are the stirrup pads. Did they brush them? Particularly, this is a big factor if it's muddy or if it's cross-country day. Did they wipe down the mud or brush the pads? We have the metal pads on this saddle, so that's not a big deal. Did they just give it a top line wipe off? Again, if it's been a wet rally, you might have more challenges. There might need to be a little more conditioning going on, but this isn't meant to be rocket science. Some of the things that you will want to look for are the stress points on the stirrup leathers. And this is something that I'm usually educating, even at the turnout inspection. You really need to go over those stress points on your stirrup leathers and also your billets to prevent wear and tear, because the more that the metal residue builds up in these places where metal is sitting, be your stirrup or your girth buckles, it starts to wear it down, and it can lead to cracks, and that can lead to breaks. So I'm usually looking, did they put some attention there? Also, for the saddle, have they detached their saddle pad? Sounds really silly, but you think about a nice leather saddle sitting on a sweaty saddle pad. Gross, right? You want to take good care of your leather. Main thing for me is looking and making sure the saddle pad's disconnected, put out to dry. I recognize that most of our members have multiple saddle pads at rally. As long as it's not attached to the saddle right then, I'm good. Girth. So, girth, again, we're not looking for turnout inspection. We're looking, did you get the sweat off, the hair off? On the inside, leather girths are a little bit easier than some of the microfiber. I'm not looking, you can tell when Pony Club members have been dinged on something, or they've had a gray horse, which I've had a gray horse. They're with tweezers, pulling all the hair out. Do your best effort. Hair will get stuck in the seams. You don't want it to sit there because it can leave residue and ultimately damage the leather on microfiber girths or like fleece girths. Did you brush the hair off? I have it has a rubber panel on the inside. It's a nylon girth. I will dunk it, if I have to, and let it dry. That's the purpose of having these non-leather materials, these synthetic materials. So, did you get mud off? Did you get the sweat off?
So I have a question.
Yes.
If someone has one of the synthetic girths and when the turnback inspection comes around, the girth is still wet because they cleaned it, is that okay?
Yes, and that becomes a conversation. So I think you bring up a really important point. It's kind of the unspoken thing. Horse management is there to help you.
Right.
I know we walk around with clipboards, but when I do a briefing, I always say, I want you to show me what you know. I want you to demonstrate your skills that you have with your standards of proficiency. If that means that you had to wash your girth because you went on a muddy cross-country course and that was the best way to get the mud off, or conversely, you can let it dry and brush it off, but you're making these decisions for your equipment. That is fine. Just say, hey, my girth is wet because I decided it was best for me to hose it off, and this is my strategy. And don't keep the wet girth on top of your lovely leather saddle. Have it dry
somewhere. Yeah.
And that is one of the other things that I see a lot is this fear of using that tack cleaning hook. Like if you have something that's wet, you put it there. The wet sponges go in the drying basket, so you can say, hey, my wet girth is drying over there so that it doesn't get the leather, doesn't saturate the leather with the water. So good question.
Yeah, it's, common sense horsemanship, I think.
As long as it's put away, and it's the same thing with the horse's boots. So say you're riding cross country, you are expected to brush off or wipe off the boots, and it's fine to have them dry on the front of your horse's stall, but they need to be put away in the evening. You can't just leave them out. You think about horses, they'll be like, hey, is that a new toy for me? Or, if you leave equipment out, it's more at risk of getting lost or stolen. So, you can have these things out to dry, but, you make sure that you put them away.
Okay, awesome.
So the last piece is the bridle. And again, not turnout inspection. We're looking to make sure that it's wiped down. But what I love to see the progression from D Pony Club members up the ranks and C and upper level is their understanding of points of contact. So I'm always looking points of contact, brow band, where does a horse sweat? Brow, nose. Also, they have a tendency to slime up their bit. This is usually the adventure, and you know which kid takes apart their bridle pretty regularly. It's a check to make sure they've dropped the bit and soaked it to get all the gunk off. Some of our ponies that like to eat grass, making sure that the bit is clean. Making sure that all the joints are clean. Also making sure, this is one of the rare opportunities we have to see the tack not on a horse. And I'm always double checking, is this bit set up correctly for the next day? It sounds really silly, but you see some of these, like this is a miler, it has to be positioned a certain way. Some of these snaffles that they are set up that they have to be rigged a certain way. I always do that check, particularly with our younger members, because they may have more help when they're cleaning their tack at home than when they come at rally. And not all their teammates may be familiar. They may be like, wow, that's a cool bit, Jess. Where did you get that?
Right.
And so it's cool because you see teammate bonding, but they'll be like, I didn't know how to put it back on. And the same thing, and I'm looking across the tack room, I see it looks like either a French link or a Dr. Bristol, making sure that plate is set up the right, because bad things could go if it's the wrong way. All right, so another area where you will see a lot of contact sweat that I think gets overlooked by riders, and I'll see it at the turnout inspection, and I'm always happy when I see it at the turnout inspection, but it's corrected on the turnback that, that white stuff on the inside of the reins is sweat, and it can come off, as opposed to doing a nice polish on dried sweat on the reins. So it really is a teaching mechanism as well as a judging mechanism. And just in general, making sure, if there's a flash noseband or figure eight noseband, the slime contact, that they've wiped that off. Higher level members, you will look to make sure that there isn't residue in the holes, a little more attention based on a certification. But are they ready to go? Is everything safe? Is everything properly adjusted? Not, are you going to meet the highest level standards right now? Did you take care of your tax? So
perfect.
That's usually the big point of looking at the equipment at the Turnback.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.